discussion or instruction. And all manner of Facebook or social media experts chose to throw their hat in the ring to interpret in the context of the memo which was sent to the Immigration Department the meaning of the word stay. Now, I have to confess a little bit here that a long time ago in Bethlehem, I was an immigration officer myself. And when I saw that memo, the meaning of the word stay was not mysterious to me. I understood exactly what it should have meant, and that interpretation on my part is exactly what the government subsequently said the word stay means. And in an immigration context, or at least in the context of the memo to the Immigration Department, we must realize that there must have been previous discussion. And this was just a confirmation or a further instruction on what those discussions had been. And folks, when you travel and you go to New York or Barbados or Toronto or London or anywhere, if you go to a hotel, what do? You stay at a hotel. That doesn't mean that you stay in London forever or that you look for a job. As a matter of fact, the Prime Minister has subsequently said that the laws of St. Lucia and the laws as they pertain to foreign nationals working in St. Lucia still apply. Whether it's a work permit or any other facility that are on the books to allow a foreigner to work still apply. And just because a person from a particular country, whether it be China or the United States or Canada, can travel to St. Lucia without a visa, there is absolutely no indication or suggestion that this person, this individual, may work in St. Lucia without authorization. And it is obvious the intentions of those trying to insist otherwise, or to put their own twist and spin on the meaning of the word stay, is simply to cause mischief, to cause panic, to make the people of St. Lucia believe that we will somehow be overrun by Chinese who will suddenly descend upon St. Lucia in their millions. I don't know why anybody would think so. As a matter of fact, the population of China is just about 2 billion or somewhere around there. And I looked it up a while ago. The airfare to travel from St. Lucia to China return, and I would expect that it's about the same to travel from China to St. Lucia return, is about 6,000 EC dollars. That's not hotel accommodations or food or anything else. So I dare say that anybody coming to St. Lucia from China is more than likely able to afford their stay over here. Number two, as the Prime Minister, Alan Chasney, had or has alluded to, that before any Chinese national gets to St. Lucia, they must travel through a third country because there are no direct flights from here to Shanghai or any other city in China. So you either have to transit through the UK, through the US, or wherever else an intermediary stop would be required to get you further on to St. Lucia. Now, remember just a while ago I mentioned that there must have been some background information, and this is what I have been commenting to persons that I've discussed this matter with, because it is a memo. It's not a law. It's not a regulation. It's an instruction based on clearly previous information. Now, folks, I have here a press release. It's actually, well, not a press release, but a news article in the Jamaica Observer. That's a Jamaican newspaper with an online presence. And it's dated August the 15th, 2017. Tuesday, August the 15th, 2017. And it's headlined, St. Lucia to impose visa restrictions on Venezuelans. Almost 1 year ago. And, well, I really won't go into the whole thing here, because there's just one line that I think is of importance or relevant to the discussion of the meaning of the word stay, and my explanation that memos are for internal consumption and more than likely follow a discussion or a course of discussions about a particular issue. And the line here goes in this news story. Chasney said he has asked the Ministry of Immigration to prepare a document in relation to the visa restrictions for consideration by Cabinet. What does that suggest to you? That the Immigration Department and the relevant ministry are already discussing, and they have already brought it to the attention of the Immigration Department, the visa regimes that they want to implement as far as China is concerned and as far as Venezuela is concerned. So that, as far as I'm concerned, is a dead issue. That's the past, man. That's the past. And not only just the past, it's irrelevant, because the government of St. Lucia is entitled to, whether anybody out there likes it or not, the government of St. Lucia, in its estimation, is duty-bound to protect the interests of St. Lucia and St. Lucians, and it will do so with the implementation of immigration policy, whether that be restrictions on the amount of time that a visitor can remain in St. Lucia, or whether visa requirements are put in place for the citizens of any country that the government of St. Lucia deems to be necessary. Now, folks, St. Lucia has friendly relations with many countries. Particularly since we are in the Americas, we have very good relationships with Canada, with the US, with other countries in our region. Yet, with the United States, we have visa requirements. In fact, St. Lucia, if we were able to, could be picked up and dropped in any state in the United States of America, with all the people on it, 170, 180,000, and we just disappear. We do know as a fact, or for a fact, that St. Lucians have found themselves on the other side of the law, the wrong side of the law, whether it be in the United States of America or whether it be in Canada. And for those of you out there who need a little brushing up on the Canada situation, we had a number of St. Lucians who have run afoul of the law over there, but particularly a number of St. Lucians who, for some misguided reason or other, felt that the surefire way of gaining residence in Canada was to claim for asylum. Well, of course, that only went so far for so long. But the Canadian government and the Canadian officials felt that it was necessary to prevent or to minimize the abuse of the asylum process of getting citizenship or residency in Canada. And because there was an alarming or concerning number of St. Lucians and others who were using that ploy to get into Canada, the Canadian government decided to impose visa restrictions on St. Lucia. And those visa restrictions have continued since they were implemented by the Canadians. We enjoy a very good relationship with the Canadians. Yet still, because of the actions of a few and anticipating the further abuse of the facility of what's that? Asylum, that's right. The Canadians implemented that measure. Now, the St. Lucia government also has the responsibility of protecting its citizens and also anticipating whether situations outside of St. Lucia exist which can adversely and eventually affect St. Lucia. We don't have to wait for the floodgates to be opened, and we don't have to wait until we are in a crisis situation. And I'm referring to the Venezuela visa requirement now. The government does not have to wait until we are overrun with crime, further with crime, with drugs, with prostitution, with human trafficking. And I think it is an insult to our intelligence for those who are using simplistic explanations or to denounce this government's attempt or intentions at protecting the people of St. Lucia. We are a small island with very limited resources, and don't we know that we have limited resources? We already have problems that have to be dealt with drugs, and we have to remember that there have been incidents in St. Lucia involving Venezuelans. It's not a secret. It's been on the news. There are Venezuelans who are in prison in St. Lucia. There is a Venezuelan who was just recently deported from St. Lucia, involved in lots of funny business over here. But nevertheless, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Ministers must have been appraised by our security forces with security information or briefings regarding St. Lucia's security status and the statuses of countries in the region and the trends in crime. Now, folks, let's not pretend. You know, we must be honest and let's keep it real. You know what I'm talking about. Venezuela has been a very good friend to St. Lucia. Absolutely. In fact, I can attest to that. Venezuela was one of the biggest assisters to St. Lucia after Hurricane Allen. I have a connection with the Venezuelans, and those of you who know me know very well what that connection was way long ago. after Hurricane Allen when that started. I've been to Venezuela. It's a beautiful country. Wonderful people back then. But whether we like it or not, Venezuela has changed. There are still some very good people in Venezuela. Lots of very good people in St. Lucia. And there are a lot of very nasty people in Venezuela that we wouldn't want on our shores, and we wouldn't want the influence here. Venezuela was a booming country in South America. I can attest to that. I've seen it myself. It's one of the richest oil countries in the world. But for some reason, it took a turn for the not too good. People may discuss the politics if they want. I really don't have any interest in that tonight. The philosophies, people may want to wax political or wax philosoph on the issue. But I really don't care about the politics, whatever ism you may subscribe to or attribute to Venezuela, whatever camaraderie you want to extend. But what I can say is that things were so bad over there. How many students did we have who had to scream ball to high heaven to get the hell out? Let's get real. We had students in Venezuela who had to be practically rescued. Lest your memories fail you tonight. The drug trade in Venezuela has all but, or has become even bigger by enticing persons who were not involved previously to become involved now as a manner of survival. But guess what, folks? That's not our fault. As a tiny country, regardless of what assistance Venezuela gave to us, which we are very thankful for, it's not our fault. And it is not our problem. It is the Venezuelan government's problem to deal with and to rectify and to put measures in place to resolve that situation over there. However, on the flip side of that coin, it is the responsibility of our government to protect the people of St. Lucia and to do it diligently and to do it with a sense of purpose by examining what is happening around us and taking the preventive measures to safeguard all and sundry in St. Lucia. In November of last year, we had a symposium on crime where all the stakeholders, and I really don't like that word too much, it's stakeholders word, but it's what's used a lot over here. The stakeholders in St. Lucia, whether it was from the private sector, the Chamber of Commerce, law enforcement, the Rastafarian Society, we even had members supporting the legalization of marijuana. We had architects, we had the churches were present, all and sundry came together at Union with government representatives to discuss the state of crime in St. Lucia. Last year, we hear it over and over again. This current administration's feet are not removed from the fire of the 60 homicides from last year. But the Prime Minister has stated that of those 60 homicides, 40 of them were gang related. Gang related. Gang related for what? What were the gangs involved in? Was it barbecue chicken? Yeah, you know, what was it? Barbecue chicken? Was it lambi? Was it fish fry? You know, what is all this conflict about between the gangs? You know, let's keep it real around here. And in Trinidad, which is the closest to Venezuela, nearest point is 10 miles. It's even closer than St. Lucia to Martinique, right? The distance between Castries to Pigeon Point, if you look straight across, is about 5 miles. So to and from, you're in Venezuela or you're in Trinidad. You go on a cruise, what they call it, the Pearl, from Rodney Bay. If you get down to Soufriere, that's more than 10 miles. And you can be down, catch a wine, do a 6:30, make whatever clap, you know, on the Pearl, and you can become so engrossed in the action there. Mind your funky business too. And by the time you check yourself, you're pulling up again right there in Rodney Bay. So Trinidad now has a serious problem of piracy. And the reason for that, I mean, we've all heard the stories about dogs and cats and rats and all of that. Of course, during all of this crisis in Venezuela, there are going to be areas that are still well-to-do. People have connections. But by and large, it is a significant problem in Venezuela. Let me just pull up a little statistic here for you to let you understand how serious things are in Venezuela. Now, I want to just pull up a currency converter here for you. I checked a few days ago, but I want to... Oh, it's even worse. Hold on there. I want to check for you currently what it says. The conversion rate for $1 to a Venezuelan bolivar. And currently, as of just a few seconds ago, $1 is worth 172,400 bolivars. That's right, folks. 172,400 bolivars. St. Lucia's, or the Eastern Caribbean currency dollar, is worth $1 is worth 2.7 EC dollars. So you do the math. If you had to spend $10 in Venezuela, or convert $10 in Venezuela, the official rate, you would have in your possession 1.7 million bolivars. And whilst I was researching this, you know, you notice things and you don't know the background to it, and you wonder why, and you never really know. And it was said in that report, or in the information that I was getting, that the reason why so many Venezuelans and persons in countries where the currency is valued so low is because the reason why they carry backpacks is to carry all of this money. That's why you always see people with those backpacks. When you see pictures of them in those countries, they always have a bag or a backpack. It's simply to carry all of this money. Imagine transacting if you were there and you had to have money to purchase whatever you needed, that a simple 20 EC dollars would be over 1 million Venezuelan bolivars. Now that is amazing. But that also tells you that the economy is down the tubes. Absolutely. There is absolutely no ambiguity, or anyone who's been around for a little while will know that when your currency is that low, the economy is down. So Venezuela, in the north of Venezuela, and to those of you who know it and those of you who don't, you can pull up a map of Venezuela and look at the northeast coast, which is close to Trinidad. And there are 2 points on the east of Venezuela. I remember that from geography at St. Mary's College. I remember it particularly because we were dealing with Trinidad. Brother Cyril, who's passed away now, was the geography teacher, if I recall correctly, at that time. And I remember the Dragon's Mouth and the Serpent's Mouth. These are the 2 closest points between Venezuela and Trinidad. And you have Estado Sucre, which is the state of Sucre. You have the capital city, Cumaná. You have La Guaira. And a number of cities along the northeast coast of Venezuela, which are within quite short distance to Trinidad. And we heard the Prime Minister make reference to the Go Fast boats, and I heard some people chuckle about it as if he was making up some expression. There are Go Fast boats. And many of these boats have 2 and 3 engines, 200 horsepower each, 300 horsepower each. And they're flying. They're flying. And what happens between Venezuela and Trinidad is survival. But that survival is not a warm and cozy thing. Oh, people need to survive. That's true. But that survival has encouraged, for want of a better word, criminal activity. So there's no cash flowing about in Venezuela. The Venezuelan bolivar is practically useless. You have to carry too much of it to buy anything. So the currency du jour is the US dollar. But you see, it's very difficult to get the US dollar legally in Venezuela because people don't have money and it costs so much. So now, even looking at the Venezuelan bolivar being 172,400 to 1 US dollar, that's officially at the banks, there's a black market for the sale of US dollars, just like we have the unofficial trading of US dollars here for $2.50. Everybody knows that. But in Venezuela, it's almost double the official rate. So you're looking at almost 300,000 bolivars for 1 US dollar. The rates may vary. Venezuela is a very big place, but by and large, it's almost that. So that breeds a lot of corruption. It breeds a lot of desperation because now you have people who will only accept US dollars to trade for the purchase of anything because it's too tedious to deal in Venezuelan bolivars. Now, Trinidad and Venezuela takes what? 10 miles in a go-fast boat. Few minutes to get across there. And Trinidad has been inundated with pirates. I was reading a report here. Let me get it for you. Actually, the situation in Venezuela has been reported in Bloomberg Business Week. And there was a story in that publication on January the 30th of this year. And it's a little long, so I don't know whether I should get into reading it to you, but I think you will endure me. You will allow me to read you a few paragraphs so you get an idea. In fact, there's one particularly that I would like to read to you because it just jumped out at me, and it exposes a lot of what is going on down there between Venezuela and Trinidad. And we have to realize that whatever happens in our sister islands, particularly the negative things, have a slow and insidious way of creeping up to us. And especially with those boats again, the range of those pirates down there, and the desperation of the people manning those boats places St. Lucia in a not too distant arc of interest by these individuals. So we will take a quick break, and I will be back with you on Keeping It Real. Venezuela and China, to visa or no visa.
Well, Norbert seems to like that theme quite a bit. You've been listening to the first part of Keeping It Real. We'll be back in just a moment after paying some bills.
The Caribbean is our paradise, and nothing is more heart-wrenching than to see that paradise taken away. In 2017, we were helpless witnesses to the destruction of our beautiful islands, leaving in its trail devastation, despair, and even death. It's 2018, and Fast Cash is ready to face the storm with you. Get instant financing to prepare for the upcoming hurricane season. From the reinforcement of your home to purchasing equipment, supplies, or paying for your insurance. Whatever you need, our friendly staff are ready and waiting to assist you with one of our loans, which are instantly insured. Smarter, faster, better. Fast Cash.
From the lush green hills of Saltibus in St. Lucia comes a refreshing natural spring, bursting with extraordinary flavor and goodness. Filtered and treated at our modern facility to precise international standards. Bottled at the source to maintain its genuine as nature intended taste. And delivered to you in a distinct package to quench your thirst. Forest spring water, nature's own.
From mobile around the world, it's refugees will land. I'm surfing with 4G LTE. My data speed just double. Flow mobile causing trouble. Get up to the time, your speed not faster than mine.
Enjoy Flow 4G LTE network, the first in St. Lucia. Enjoy your favorite content anywhere and just in time to sign up for the new and improved Flow prepaid and postpaid combo plans. Still the best value on island. Prepaid plans start at only $4.99 with unlimited talk and text, super fast data, and international minutes. Postpaid combo plans start at only $115. Get so much more now, up to 25 gigabytes 4G LTE data with rollover minutes plus a free SIM. Wow! Flow 4G LTE. Always connected, always faster.
4G LTE, latest technology. Now you know where to go. What to do?
All right, and you're tuned to Kyrie 93.1, and the program, we're in the middle of the program called Keeping It Real. But there's a good time to remind you that tomorrow morning we'll be here from 9 o'clock till 12 to play you some of your favorite music on Emancipation Day. And another reminder that on Friday night, August the 3rd, we will have the Pick of the Crop Finals. That's the Calypso Finals out of Barbados. You know, Barbados, they say the pick of the crop. The best calypsos and calypsonians in Barbados. We'll join CBC Q100 on Friday night right here, August the 3rd. So stay tuned for that. Let's go back to the program Keeping It Real.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome back to Keeping It Real. I'm Norbert Williams with you, and in the studio tonight, we have the man Champagne, and he's smiling at his phone. I don't know why, but he didn't tell me what's going on over there.
Well, if you had that password for that phone, you'd be in a lot of trouble.
Me?
Listen, I'm paying full attention to the information coming out of your lips, Brother Norbert. Seriously, because...
But Champagne, tell me, what do you think about the concerns that our Prime Minister and this government has or have about the potential of the situation which is developing in Venezuela and has now begun to clearly affect Trinidad and Tobago?
You know, earlier you indicated the illegal activities, some of the illegal activities that went on in St. Lucia, and you forgot one. You remember there was a break-in at our prisons, and a Venezuelan. You remember 4 o'clock in the morning a few years ago? There was a break-in, some kind of, I don't know, you only see these things on television.
Yeah, where some guys were broken out
from the prison, and they were Venezuelan nationals. Now,
right.
I do not
two of them were, right? And
right,
one
two of them
Lucia.
and was one
That's
Lucia.
right. That's
so
right.
For people to just believe that what you're saying regarding the drug war and the gun war and the drug trafficking, this is a reality. Now, if the Prime Minister at his disposal feels that, he needs to protect his borders, I see why. I don't see why not.
But you see, it's mysterious how the St. Lucia Labour Party, because they have criticized this move. Yeah. Because let's face it, first and foremost, they are politically affiliated with the current regime in Venezuela.
Okay.
Let's just get that straight. They're brothers, they're comrades, they're all in the same. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that per se.
Right.
But the fact is that the former administration, and that is where you begin to question the legitimacy or the qualification in making statements about about security by the former administration, when, for all intents and purposes, they failed security-wise. And the Prime Minister has stated it on more than one occasion that during the tenure of the former administration, none of the Coast Guard boats were working. None.
The radars.
N-U-N. None.
What about our radars?
The two radar systems were non-functional. That is a fact. They were not operating by themselves. They were not under the care of the wind and the birds. They were under the care of the Ministry of National Security and the government of St. Lucia at the time. The forensics lab was Loctite. Remember when it was built that, what were we told? That we could have even sourced out our services to other islands. That's right.
I remember.
The DPP's office was woefully understaffed and under-provisioned as far as computer equipment and facilities were concerned. But at the height of all of this, we had a visit to St. Lucia's parliament by Maduro himself.
Right.
So the irony of that and the audacity that an administration which failed at many things, but failed particularly with security, are the ones who want to call the shots and dictate to the government, to this government, what steps and in what manner they should protect the people of St. Lucia and our borders. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous. And I came across a saying today. Actually, it flashed on CNN, and I, every once in a while when I come across a rather profound statement, I make a note of it. And this is what it said. Let's make sure. Accountability is meaningless unless it's for everybody. So the accountability of this administration, the fires of accountability that the SLP want to put to this administration should not and cannot only apply to this administration. The old excuse or the brush off that that's the past, man, that's the past. You in office now. Where is your accountability for your failure to deliver on St. Jude's? Where is your accountability to the people of St. Lucia with your failure for national security, the failure to maintain the police boats, the failure to keep the radar systems working, the failure to open the forensics lab, the DPP's office's failure? Is it that you're out of office now and that does not matter anymore? Yes, it does matter, because you have absolutely no credibility and no record on which to stand to order or demand that anybody does anything. Shame on you.
Yes, sir.
Shame on you all. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. Tough luck. You got to take that medicine. And you know what? That medicine you prescribe for yourself. But let's just get back here, because you will be hearing more from me on this accountability thing. And you want to talk about accountability? How about accounting to us, giving us some accountability for Grindberg? How about some accountability for Frenwell and Rochamel and NCA and whatever else? Anything comes to mind for you? Champagne?
Oh, man.
The multitude of other accountable. What about St. Jude's? How about accountability for that? How about the dismal state of the George Odlum Stadium?
Yep, and the report.
Ah,
Yeah, I like that.
ah. You know, as a matter of fact, I have some really hot documents which from another reverse leak, my brother.
No way.
Another reverse leak. I'm telling you, I have another reverse leak. But we have to go
That's
through
for
that
another
one
show.
first. Well, that's for another show. That's for another show. That's for another show. I ain't gonna drop that now.
All right.
But another reverse leak. The leak's coming back, you know.
Of course.
The leaks are coming back.
You know, so the saying what goes around comes around is for
Well,
real.
well, I ain't care about how it coming wrong or whatever. I know what's coming.
Once it comes.
Once it comes. You know, so let me get back to this here from Bloomberg Business Week from January 30th, 2018. And, you know, trying in my best reading voice. I hope some of you out there don't have a problem with me as I beg your indulgence. Because I would like this to be a little personal, because how it's written here is of an interview with individuals in Trinidad who have been affected by
Piracy.
the piracy and the situation with the drugs and guns that are being traded, the arms, for food, and how too many of the times it's intended or expected to be a regular exchange, and it becomes much worse than that. In fact, a little later on, I can share with you a story from a friend of mine who actually lives in Venezuela and contacted me just a few months ago and was giving me the story of life through their eyes in Venezuela, where that person has lived for quite a number of years. And what he said needs to, or he has had to do to survive down there. So the people who want to gloss over this and give the hunky-dory story about how things are so nice and rosy in Venezuela, it ain't really all that. And just like whether you have good times or bad times, there are some people who are going to be getting it good, and there are going to be some areas that are going to be good, and some areas that are going to be neglected. And in this case, it is a serious situation that is not just a few isolated pockets in Venezuela, but a serious, serious problem. You have the opposition who are being locked up, and many other things are happening to them in Venezuela. So the situation is not good. It is not good, and in the words of somebody here recently, it is not good, it doesn't look good, and somebody will have to give answers. I'm sure you remember who said that. That's right. So let me get to this. And I'll start off right here. In here, the trees are mainly mangrove, Sean says in one of the last videos of him posted on the Madu Bird Tours Facebook page. As he deftly balances on the bow of his tour boat, he tells a group of tourists, these are called the red mangrove or the rhizophorus. These trees grow, branches fall, roots come down. Where Sean is today is a mystery. His wife, Crystal, in June, told the press her husband went on a fishing trip in his father's pirogue with a friend, Vishal Ramlochan, and set sail from Sealots, Port of Spain, around 5 a.m. on May the 26th. He told me to call every half hour, but when I called back, oh, hold on, I just missed a line there. She said she called her husband's mobile phone that morning at 8 o'clock. And he said they were very close to Venezuelan waters, but were being surrounded by Venezuelan pirates. He told me to call every half hour, but when I called back about 20 minutes later, he did not answer. So that leads me to believe that they were kidnapped, she told the press. People are calling and saying they have them, but we cannot confirm because they're not allowing us to speak with them. They said, pay the money or we will find them dead. She said Sean was not around to celebrate his 28th birthday on June the 26th. The couple have 3 daughters, aged 7, 5, and 1. Then reports surfaced in August stating Venezuela's Guardia Nacional, or the National Guard, had killed a group of 5 suspected pirates. The group, according to Venezuelan media, was aboard a small blue boat called Cimarron in waters off Mapire on Venezuela's north coast. According to the reports, 2 of the Venezuelans were carrying AR-15 rifles and AK-47s. There was the suggestion that the incident somehow related to the disappearance of Madu and Ramlochan. However, the Venezuelan reports did not mention these men by name. Now it goes on. I want to get to another section here. Last month, 2 fishermen were attacked in broad daylight in the waters of the Gulf of Paria by a group of Spanish-speaking men carrying firearms. That incident followed the murders of fisherman Christian Steve Hernandez, 19, in a violent attack involving Spanish-speaking pirates on September 28th, and Marcus Hanif, 23, in a similar attack on September 19th. So, let me just exit out of this here for a little bit, because you get the gist of what's going on down there. And a big item to take back to Venezuela is Pampers, disposable baby diapers. And according to the information that I got, the price paid for these Pampers, Huggies particularly, that brand, Huggies, is big in Venezuela because they don't have them over there. It's 3 times whatever they paid for it in Trinidad. And what happens out there, and I think we can recall maybe 2 years ago or a year and a half ago about a St. Lucian who had a video surface on Facebook being held in Venezuela.
Right, yeah.
Remember that one?
Asking his family, talking about his brother was the one that did whatever.
Right.
And, yeah.
Now, everybody saw that. It went viral. It was the subject of talk shows for weeks.
Right.
That is happening in Venezuela because the desperation that has set in over there, people have turned from man to beast. And it's simply a matter of survival now, where guns and corrupt officials in Venezuela, in the military, in the National Guard, have been identified as being involved in a lot of these illegal activities. And as a matter of fact, participating and running a lot of these operations. And I know the hairs on the backs of some of you listening out there must be rising and challenging, ready to challenge me on that statement. But it is a fact. In fact, there are news reports out of Venezuela, and I will find it for you in a second in this pile of papers that I have here, of 50 military personnel who were actually arrested in Venezuela for engaging in those activities. So it is a fact. Military personnel over there have been reported to be running prostitution rings, to be running arms smuggling rings, to be running drugs rings. That's a fact. It's made it to the news. So when you have that level of abuse of authority and people not trusting or people being exploited by law enforcement or military personnel, then everything is hunky-dory over there. Are you telling me that this information, which is already and has been in the public domain, which is the subject of news reports by the BBC, by Reuters, on YouTube if you want, go Google it. Go search it on YouTube. Don't believe me? You're telling me that information like this, which is already in the public domain with lots of evidence, would not have made it to the Prime Minister of St. Lucia and his cabinet of ministers by the security forces of St. Lucia? By the security forces which are members of the regional security system, which exchanges information about crime, about smuggling, about drugs, about weapons? Did the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, after all that we claim Venezuela has done for us, wake up one morning and decide, you know what, I'm going to put visa requirements on Venezuela just for the fun of it? Yeah, it's you know, I mean, the simplistic and nonsensical arguments that are made, they're just an insult to the intelligence of the people of St. Lucia. What do we want? For us to get the unequivocal evidence that this is happening only when we become overrun? I mean, what do we talk about policing? Is it only reactive? In fact, we complain about the police reacting to crime when they should take a preventive role and become more proactive as far as crime internally. So what is our Prime Minister doing? Isn't he not being proactive? Is he not being proactive? Is the cabinet of ministers not being prudent and concerned about putting measures in place? And regardless of what anybody says, measures are measures, and we do what we can do.
Right.
Visa regimes have been used by countries to pressure the countries on which those visa regimes have been placed to do the right thing. I remember many years ago when I worked in immigration, we still had apartheid in South Africa, and many countries in the world had instituted visa requirements for South Africans. Just like we're instituting visa requirements for Venezuelans. South Africa is maybe 20 times further away from St. Lucia than Venezuela is. But we had visa restrictions on South Africans who didn't regularly travel to St. Lucia.
Valid point.
They didn't travel to St. Lucia. So what was the purpose of the visas being placed on them
Yeah,
when they were not part of our tourism footprint at all?
that's true.
But you see, not only is there the direct security implications with Venezuela, but clearly, even though the situation in Venezuela is occurring in a sovereign state, we have to be concerned about the fallout and how it can and will affect St. Lucia. So therefore, you have to send a message. So I remember, I think it was the Cunard at that time. I cleared that ship. And before the ship opens up to allow the passengers on shore, even though they're in transit, and even though the immigration officer cannot check all 6,000 passports or 4,000 or 2,000 on entry, you go through the manifest.
Right.
You look at the names and you look at the nationalities. And there were two or four South Africans on there. And being the astute immigration officer that I was, the young and astute immigration officer, I paid attention to that. I noticed it immediately and informed the purser that those individuals would not be allowed
Off the
to
ship.
get off the ship, whether it's for a day or 2 hours, in St. Lucia. And the reason for that action by the government at the time was to put pressure on the South African government indirectly. Because if you can get the people now becoming annoyed that the freedoms that other persons were having outside in the rest of the world, what they had grown accustomed to seeing,
Right.
if that is curtailed, they will bring their influence to bear on the government to change their practices so that these restrictions can be lifted. When we had all of these false documents in St. Lucia many years ago, that's why we had this problem with these birth certificates. It's because the U.S. started clamping down. When we had so many people from you know what country I'm talking about bringing all of these fake documents to the U.S. embassy, we know about it. It's not a secret. We know that. The U.S. started becoming a little more stringent on St. Lucians. And how many times have we heard the stories of plane loads of St. Lucians going up for visas and everybody being denied?
Yeah.
Persons who had been traveling back and forth to the U.S. had no intention of staying there, never overstayed. For some mysterious reason, their visa was not renewed. So let's not play dotish. And the people who are making those arguments know very well what has been going on. So the measures by this current administration are prudent. So now let's move away from the Venezuela thing. I think we've understood, or I have painted a good enough picture of what the government has done vis-a-vis what is occurring and what we would like to keep as far away from St. Lucia as possible. End of story. Number to call if you have any comments or questions is 456-0931, and the email if you have any questions and comments and you don't want to be on air, you can email us. The email address is info@keepingitreal.lc. So, Champagne,
Yes, sir.
when last were you in Trinidad?
I was in Trinidad, let's see, 2011, 2012, thereabout.
I'm not trying to plug, put in a plug for
Maybe
Trinidad,
about
but it's a
6,
beautiful
7.
country.
Very nice.
Venezuela is a beautiful country
Beautiful.
too.
I've been to Venezuela as well. It's a
I
beautiful,
can say that
beautiful country.
myself.
Beautiful country.
But we have to be practical and realistic that times change, situations change, and we have a responsibility
Of
to
course.
ourselves.
If I may. Oh, you have a call coming.
Good evening. Thank you for calling, Keeping It
Good
Real.
night, Mr. Norbert.
Yes, sir. Good night.
I'm enjoying your show, man,
Thank you very much.
for the past couple weeks.
Well, that's great. I'm glad we have a regular listener there.
Yeah, and I decided to call tonight, man. Very interesting topic.
Thank you very much. What part of this planet are you calling from?
Castries.
You're from Castries. That's great.
Yes.
Big up Castries posse.
Yeah, man, big time.
Good. You have a particular question you'd like to throw in there or comment?
I totally agree with the Prime Minister for protecting our borders, because the crisis in Venezuela and knowing Trinidad is next door, and most of the people are flooding the countries and they does not have documents, and those things could bring in crime in another country. I have no problem with the Venezuelans because over the past years, growing up as a little boy and stuff like that, when hurricane, used to hit the sister countries like Dominica, Grenada, even St. Lucia, I remember they used to send the aircraft to, to bring stuff for
That's
St.
right,
Lucia.
C-130s.
Yeah,
That just happened last year.
And even one of them, how they call the aircraft again?
The C-130, the Hercules.
The C-130s. Do you
Hercules.
remember the Iran
Iran
Contra
Contra with
yeah,
St.
they were
Lucia
carrying
Airways.
arms and them things. And St. Lucian have to understand, not because the aircraft was involved in that, but people right now, the way the country is moving, it's not like what it used to be 30, 40 years ago.
Exactly.
We does not know who are the people, that come in via the canoes. We does not know if they are criminals or if they are drug lords or they're just trying to get a base where, they could be safe haven and all kind of things like that. So we have to protect our borders. I mean, most of the people are innocent, but somebody has to pay the price. Because you're totally right. Sometimes you're not a bad person.
That's right.
But because of the track record
Of others.
others,
Yeah.
you could go to the U.S. Embassy as a
That's
result
right.
of one person.
That's right.
Everybody has to suffer.
But look at this. Look at Canada, the situation with Canada.
yes,
How many people, how many St. Lucians go to Canada, go to the US, return, go back and forth? Why should these people who have no records, who haven't created any problems in there, why should they feel that visa requirement, the inconvenience, the payment? Now, is it Canada? You have to go to Trinidad now
Yes,
to get a
for the
visa.
visa,
The
yeah.
expense. So they're making it particularly difficult, clearly,
Exactly.
for the regular person to afford going to Canada. Now, do you feel that's right for you who's never had any infraction or broken the law? No, you will not feel it's correct. But they're
Exactly.
taking the measures that they feel are necessary to prevent persons from committing themselves, from breaking the law in Canada and protecting their citizens.
correct.
That is the important thing.
Yes,
And this is the very same thing that the government is doing now.
exactly. You have to protect your borders and your
Mm-hmm.
people.
That's right.
And you remember years ago, Martinique had that same problem?
Exactly.
You understand?
Exactly.
Because I'm not going to make no bones about it. We St. Lucians used to go there and dirty the country's name.
Well, there was just something in the news
Listen,
just
that's a couple of
a
days
week and a
ago.
half ago
Yeah.
Yeah.
of an uproar in there. St. Lucian is reported
Yeah.
to have shot a 19-year-old young man because he refused to give up his motorcycle.
Exactly.
And there's been a lot of talk about the trade in stolen motorcycles
Yeah,
from Martinique
yeah.
coming across to St. Lucia.
Yeah.
So we have been responsible ourselves for a lot of the measures that have been put in place,
Yes.
visa regimes
Yes.
that other countries have put in place to protect themselves from us.
Exactly.
So why is it that as a sovereign country that we cannot put our own visa regimes and take the measures that we deem necessary to protect our small and vulnerable country?
Vulnerable is
Yeah,
the
I
word.
agree because I remember the opposition, the former prime minister. He didn't really care about this country because as soon as he won the election, he sworn in about 1 o'clock. Time for 2 o'clock, he was in Venezuela.
Yeah. Yep.
But
So-
does that really say he doesn't care about St. Lucia?
Because at the time, because you had another incident again, where Mr. Biden was visiting Trinidad and Tobago.
Right, right.
And I had a partner that was a secret police to Obama and stuff like that. And the guy had to bring some parts for me. And usually when the guy come in to St. Lucia, he would let me know. But because of that assignment, he never let me know. And the guy called me Saturday, and I was telling him to bring something for me. He told me, no, he's not coming to the Caribbean. I said, well, if you're coming down, I said, well, just forget that. When it was about 10 o'clock, the guy was already in St. Lucia. Give somebody something for me. And he already gone to Trinidad. Because you know when those president or vice president visiting, security personnel has to be on a high.
Yep.
You know, forget about Obama, but the vice president had top security there. You understand?
Yeah.
So everybody now looking to protect their borders. Because when you look at Europe, the migrants, right now most of the countries telling you, nah, man,
Yeah.
they don't want those
That's
migrants
right, that's
to
right.
come in. And some of those people risking their life trying to go, you know, into Europe and
Because I'll tell you what, caller, I hardly believe that anybody does not care about the plight of these people. But as a country, you have to be concerned about the strain that these people will put on your own resources. This is not a mega country with all of natural resources and gold and everything else. We are a very small and vulnerable country. And a situation like that, with an influx of refugees and persons from Venezuela, who, number one, will not speak English, who, number two, don't have any marketable skills in St. Lucia, would ultimately, as we're seeing in Trinidad, be engaged in below the radar activities. I mean, we've seen it happen time and time again. What do we expect? What do we expect to come out of this? So the situation in Venezuela has to be fixed. And then, as a result of that, the people who are desperate to survive will be given an opportunity to survive in their own country.
Of course. Of course.
But anyway, thank you very much for calling,
Yeah, man, I
caller.
appreciate that, and I'll keep listening, man.
That's great.
And good night to your panel.
Thank you very
Yes, sir.
much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I'll give you a little experience, Norbert and Champagne. My first visit to Venezuela, I was trying to get to the airport 4 o'clock in the morning, and suddenly we were stopped by some soldiers. I was alone, sitting in the back of the taxi, and a fella stopped the taxi and pushed this submachine gun into the back, into my face, and asked me, where am I going? I said, I'm going to the airport. You visiting? Yes. I said, yes. And you can tell I was shaking. They spoke to the taxi man in Spanish for a while. I was en route to Panama. I had to stop stop in Venezuela in transit to Panama, and I had to overnight there. I was going down to Panama City. That was in the early 80s. It was a frightening time for me. The second visit I went there, I remember sitting at the airport, and there were two fellas took off their shirts, and two soldiers just came and grabbed them and took them away. But that's the only time. I never had the opportunity to go and see Caracas apart from the airport, drive to the hotel and back.
It's a very serious country. Very serious. The police, the soldiers. everybody
for a
is
very
on par.
long time.
But it's very pretty, very beautiful country. I went to Venezuela on 2 occasions. Very, very nice country.
Yeah, there's
And it's just unfortunate what is going on
that's
right
right.
now. It's just unfortunate. And like the caller just said, you need to protect your country. Every country in the world. Listen to me. Let's go to the United States, and I know some people might, take me on that, because Donald Trump with the wall. No, I know you'd have said that. Listen to me.
Here we go now.
That wall, Donald Trump. A lot of people want to cast blame on Donald Trump for, maybe basically because of the kind of the individual he is. But this man, in my mind, and that's Champagne's opinion, is trying to protect his country from the drug lords from all these kind of rapists and criminals coming into the United States. And
where they coming from? Oh,
coming in from Mexico
Hold on a second.
and South and Central America.
Hold on a second now. You talking about rapists and
Drug lords.
Drug lords. No, but particularly, you see, that is a statement which was made on the campaign trail by Trump. He has since retracted that, although half-heartedly. But the thing is, you have to be careful about how you look at this, because the information that is available does not suggest that by and large the majority of people who come from Venezuela, Mexico.
We have a call.
Good evening. Thank you for calling Keeping It Real. Yes, sir. Can barely hear you. Can you speak up a little?
Yes, just I'm enjoying your program.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
And with the question on the visa,
Yes.
I think those people making those comments are just being mischievous. I honestly think, and you spent a lot of time, explaining from all possible angles and so on the reasons why. But I don't even see that there was a need for that, because we have that right. The government has a right to protect its citizens.
That's right.
And the government can decide arbitrarily, if it wants, at any time without any reason to implement visa. The government can sit down today and say, you know what, everybody around the world need a visa to come here. As a sovereign state, you can do that. And you see, even though people have been good to you, as Venezuela has been a friend to St. Lucia in the past, but the thing is, you can have a friend too. Let me exaggerate a little bit for clarity here. You have a friend who's always hanging out at your house, and he loses his job or things get bad with him, and you heard a story that he's been over at another friend's house and he stole something over there, or he did something which people don't like.
Right.
You think you're going to look at that person in the same light, even though they have not done anything to you? You're going to be on your P's and Q's. You're not going to leave your wallet out.
But what is more is that even if a visa regime is imposed at this point, if the situation changes,
that's right, could be removed.
That can be reviewed.
It could be removed.
But then I don't understand.
No. Listen, that is why I said that most of those persons who are putting forward, those kinds of arguments are doing it mischievously.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in this country, we have some people who would like people to not even recognize that there is one St. Lucia. We have people in this country who would, they really are the slave master type. They use, the modus operandi is divide and rule. And when you look at the political tribalism which exists in St. Lucia today,
Well, caller, let me. I would like to interrupt you there for a second.
Go ahead.
The political tribalism that you refer to is, in my opinion, not the political tribalism that we see elsewhere. I think the political tribalism, if you want to use that word, or I will use that same expression that you did, is a lot of ignorance. And that tribalism is just roro.
No, I want to disagree with you here. There are some people who are benefiting on the, well, you want to say ignorance, or I would say the perhaps people, some of our people who are not as enlightened. Okay? So they mislead them. And unfortunately, we have quite a large number of people who will not take the time to go, read, do research, or listen to different opinions before making up their minds. And I say unfortunate because it is unfortunate. So you find those people who want to lord it over everybody else like massage. They are using the same techniques that the slave masters used against the slaves a few hundred years ago. Divide and rule. At that time, you had, they turned, for example, the house slaves against the field hands and this kind of thing. This is precisely what we have going on today. And when you hear people coming out and bringing up nonsensical arguments about something like a visa regime being instituted, I see the same thing. When you look at the last maybe 20 or so years in St. Lucia politics, because growing up, we did not have that kind of tribalism here in St. Lucia.
So when would you say that sort of thinking, that sort of animosity in politics began evolving or rearing its ugly head in St.
That
Lucia?
began in the run-up to the 1997 election.
That's for sure.
I can say this.
I have heard a number of people say that.
Yes, that began then. Okay? So I don't want to stray away from the topic because I have a lot to say on that, but I don't want to stray away from the topic. The topic is the visa regime.
Yes.
And I will reiterate that those persons who come in up with all spurious arguments are just trying to mislead people. Okay? If nothing was done, you might have heard those same people saying, oh, nothing is being done.
Right.
That's for sure.
But when something is done, so personally, I take these things in stride and I move on. A visa regime is in place. If the situation changes, or, well, not if, I suppose it will change because nothing lasts forever.
Right.
So at some point, when the situation becomes more favorable, I am sure that this would be reviewed and adjusted if and when necessary. I am positive of that. Venezuela, the government of Venezuela has been a very good friend to St. Lucia. But like you are pointing out, just because they have been a good friend to St. Lucia does not mean that we must just sit by and allow them to overrun there.
Yeah.
Like yourself, I too spent a number of years in immigration, and I know all about the Venezuelans coming here on their boats, dropping off illegal stuff, and going right back. I know all about that. So, like I said, and my essential point was, many of those individuals who make those spurious arguments are doing it simply in an effort to score points.
Cheap political points.
Yeah. And by misleading people. That is all I see to it. And I really do not see that it's worth that much of an effort. I think, yes, you're enlightening people, and this is good. But nah, I wouldn't waste much effort on them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for calling. We appreciate you calling, and we appreciate all our callers to Keeping It Real, where we'd like you and encourage you to keep it real as well. We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, we'll take a break here. It's just about 20 more minutes to go, plus or minus a second. We'll be right back
I didn't know
in
you
just
had
a
an
few
atomic
minutes.
clock in here.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Oh, we have a call. Let's take that and see what's... Good evening. Thanks for calling Keeping It Real.
Yes, good evening to you, my brother.
Yes, sir. Good night to you.
See, I called this. I turned on my radio a little bit late.
Yes.
You said much of what you said. Could you tell me who you are? Could you say your name?
My name is Norbert Williams.
Norbert Williams, and you represent any organization or?
Well, not at this time. I represent the show that I have here, Keeping It Real.
I see. Okay. No. I mean, honestly, you converted me, my brother. Truly. I mean, you really made the case in a rather comprehensive manner. I was a little concerned about the way this government would want to treat the Venezuelan government.
Mm-hmm.
Venezuelan government is a left-wing government.
Mm-hmm.
The Lucian government is very much a right-wing government, you know. And then I've been monitoring how St. Lucia deals with, the likes of Venezuela and Nicaragua. Mm-hmm. And I would like to think, or like to prefer that St. Lucia maintains the principle of non-interference in the affairs of other governments, other countries. I mean, the case, in this particular case, it's a pity I don't have what I call a data man. When my credit's done, it's done, okay?
Okay.
In this particular case, yes, then I can understand how governments operate in this regard, in this respect, okay? There's a total mess in Venezuela's economy. The only problem I have, or the only thing, before you made that case, and I really very much appreciate the case, and especially the way you presented it, very articulate, I mean, you have some special skill, in this area.
Well, thank you very much.
For that. Yeah. But the thing is, I know how the so-called international community feels about the likes of certain countries.
Mm-hmm.
That's not their friends, such as Iran, such as Venezuela, such as Cuba. Probably, yeah. Okay, let's put Cuba in there. And, a few others, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then I know, or from my research, and then my understanding of global politics, I know how the powerful Western countries that gain the power that they now have through enslaving the black race, right? And they have become rich and powerful, and then they now feel that they're in charge of running the world. And then the way they're running it is no good. It is totally unilateral. It's not democratic at all. It's definitely in their favor, not against the favor of the rest of the world, especially the black world, especially the third world, and so on, right?
Uh-huh.
Now, countries like Venezuela that have that oil, they're sitting on the largest oil reserve.
Yep.
Are you aware of that?
Yes.
So I'm saying that I know what my research shows me by listening to news over the years. This lowering of the price of oil for the past few years, I think it was aimed at destroying the economy of countries like Venezuela and Iran. Okay?
But why? But my question to you is: I understand that, and that argument has been made. Mm-hmm. But if you have the proper use of your resources, the lowering of the cost of a barrel of oil is around the world. It's not isolated just to those countries.
I understand that.
Right.
But the thing is, Venezuela, I guess they were reliant and almost entirely on their oil. Not on tourism, not on manufacturing, not on almost nothing else. The oil was at least maybe 99% more or less what the country was depending upon. And then that oil was not in the hands of the capitalists.
But you see, hold on a second here. Hold on a second here.
Uh-huh.
I understand what you're saying, and to us, well, I understand and I agree to a certain extent.
Thank you.
But what we do not hear too much these days, and in the 70s when you had the oil crisis in the mid to latter part of the 70s, you used to hear a lot on the news about the OPEC states,
I know.
Organization
yes.
of Petroleum Exporting Countries.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't hear anything much about that anymore.
That's true.
And
that's interesting. What you say is true, eh?
Right. And if since you do your research, I'll allow you to do that. And if you go on there and see the countries that are members of OPEC.
OPEC has been pretty much dominated by Saudi Arabia.
Well,
And
as in production.
Go ahead. Sorry.
As in production, but when you look at the other countries who are members of OPEC, and OPEC is a significant organization.
It's formidable, but
right.
it's extremely political as well.
Well, the question is, why have one set of countries been successful, if you will, and in OPEC, and others have been floundering and have experienced problems? But what I want to leave with you, because I know you mentioned about credit.
No, it doesn't matter. I mean,
okay.
It's worth it when it finishes. It's finished.
Okay.
No problem. I'll top up.
Right. Now we have to pay some bills too. So, but anyway, I'll engage you for a little bit. What you need to look into is peak oil, and what is happening around.
We have reached there.
Oh, we certainly have. We certainly have.
Well, that's why they're talking about alternative energy. Hence the reason why they're so concerned about whatever oil reserve is left on the world, and they want to. The so-called international community want to have their finger in places where there's a lot of oil, like Libya, like Syria as well, I think.
But that is why
they're destroying one by one.
We're actually.
Venezuela is about to collapse. Thanks to those evil guys out there in Western Europe and North America.
But you also have to be concerned about what the local government is doing, which is contributing, because regardless or notwithstanding the problems that we see out there in the whole oil industry, I mean, that's another big story. But in some way, if you really look at it, if we get away from, well, we can't really get away from it. When we look at the whole Grindberg situation, it certainly isn't with regard to mining St. Lucia's sand under the sea. It's not about sand, Right.
Okay. No?
Okay. Are you finished, caller?
Yeah, basically I said what I had to say. I said, it is okay. I can now understand the way the St. Lucia's position, but at the same time I want to be careful about interfering in other countries' internal affairs, especially if they're depending on Western media to determine how to judge countries instead of sending people down there to get
But a lot of the problems with Venezuela have been self-inflicted, and I think it's gotten to a point where
it is a collaborative, conspiratory thing between the foreign interests and the elite in Venezuela, the people who would have preferred. You see, the oil is not controlled by capitalists; it's controlled by the government, and they want to shift that. They want they don't want that money to be spent on the population to fulfill their Bolivarian dream. Now, St. Lucia have to know how they stand on the idea of countries following their own ideology. Why have Simon Bolivar? Simon Bolivar.
Bolivar.
Yeah, that's right. And then this guy from St. Lucia.
Jean-Baptiste Bidot.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Why have why
bust.
do we honor those guys and then we don't honor the Bolivarian dreams of countries like in South America generally, and why we have to be politically aligned
but
of those dreams.
But caller, it's rather ironic. It's rather ironic that the government which actually established. Oh, okay, so he's gone. But I guess you're listening. the government which actually established a meaningful and diplomatic relations with the Venezuelans was the UWP government under Sir John Compton. And maybe you recall, I don't know whether you do, we don't have you on the line, but if you recall the amount of pressure that was placed on the government of St. Lucia when they established diplomatic relations with Venezuela, and when that very same Simon Bolivar that is touted as the great liberator, El Gran Libertador, right, from Venezuela, for the Bolivarian alliance and all of this talk that you're hearing about the place there, the great Simon Bolivar, when St. Lucia established meaningful relations with Venezuela after independence and undertook an exercise in the middle of Castries between the government printry, you remember that?
Yes, I
and
remember
the Ministry of Finance, the House of Parliament there, that little park
by Valmore,
right across from Valmore. There are two busts in there with some crazy person painted in mauve or something, right? One was Simon Bolivar, and the other one, if I recall correctly, was related or is related to some family from Deriso or wherever down there, and his name is Jean-Baptiste Bidot. And Romanus Lancico was a minister of government at the time, and part of the ridiculing of Romanus Lancico and the government of St. Lucia for establishing relations with Venezuela and having the audacity to put a bust of Simon Bolivar in the city of Castries next to a St. Lucian who is reportedly or supposedly the savior who saved the life of Simon Bolivar during the conflict in Venezuela. And there was a chant all over the place, Jean-Baptiste Bidot! You all remember that? Those of you who can remember. There were hecklers at that installation there. And now these people, Simon Bolivar is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they talk to you about the Andean Alliance, Aliancia Andeano, and all of that sort of thing. Yeah. Keep it real, people. We're keeping it real here.
All right, we have just about under 10 minutes to go, and we've been delaying the commercial break and a little water break as well. A little more juice, apple juice, Norbert?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
The Caribbean is our paradise, and nothing is more heart-wrenching than to see that paradise taken away. In 2017, we were helpless witnesses to the destruction of our beautiful islands, leaving in its trail devastation, despair, and even death. It's 2018, and Fast Cash is ready to face the storm with you. Get instant financing to prepare for the upcoming hurricane season. From the reinforcement of your home to purchasing equipment, supplies, or paying for your insurance. Whatever you need, our friendly staff are ready and waiting to to assist you with one of our loans, which are instantly insured. Smarter, faster, better. Fast Cash.
From the lush green hills of Saltibus in St. Lucia comes a refreshing natural spring, bursting with extraordinary flavor and goodness. Filtered and treated at our modern facility to precise international standards. Bottled at the source to maintain its genuine as nature intended taste. And delivered to you in a distinct package to quench your thirst. Forest spring water, nature's own.
From mobile around the world, it's Ricky Diesel and I'm surfing with 4G. My data speed just double. Flow mobile causing trouble. Get up to the time, your speed not faster than mine.
Enjoy clear streaming and super fast download on the new Flow 4G LTE network, the first in St. Lucia. Enjoy your favorite content anywhere and just in time to sign up for the new and improved Flow prepaid and postpaid combo plans. Still the best value on island. Prepaid plans start at only $4.99 with unlimited talk and text, super fast data and international minutes. Postpaid combo plans start at only $115. Get so much more now, up to 25 gigabytes 4G LTE data with rollover minutes plus a free SIM. Wow! Flow 4G LTE. Always connected, always faster.
4G LTE, latest technology. Now you know where to go. What to do?
All right. Well, we're back here with the program Keeping It Real. Well, I must say that we don't have much time left. We're looking at just under 5 minutes, and we'll have some overtime overrun, cost overruns. But it's a good time to remind you that tomorrow morning, what's it? Emancipation Day, right?
You know, I actually forgot. You know, I actually forgot that it was holiday tomorrow.
Yes, it's a holiday, but not a holiday for me. I'll be in here at 9 o'clock. Before that, we'll be joining CBC Barbados. We'll be joining CBC Barbados for a moment with Pearson Bowen. I hope he'll be on tomorrow. And remember, we'll be having the Pick of the Crop finals on Friday night. So let's go back to the telephone lines now. Now what?
Yes, good evening. Thank you for calling Keeping It Real.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good night, sir. How are you?
Not too bad. Mr. Ellis.
Mr. Ellis.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry, boy. My telephone is going at the same time. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, your good friend, Dr. Secret. Jump in.
Doctor.
Yes, sir. How you doing, my brother?
Okay, not too bad.
Yeah.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
The person on the phone, I got to call
I have
you
been
back.
listening to you for the longest while.
You have. Well, that's good.
And not just today alone, but from since you started, I've been listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say thanks God for people like you to enlighten St. Lucians as to what is happening in St. Lucia and around us.
Well, thank you very much.
Because there are people that will not listen to the news, they will not listen to the radio, but they will go by hearsay. They say, she say, he say.
Yep.
And they have no concrete evidence. They will tell you, but so-and-so said it because he said he heard. Now, most times when I listen to people like you, I have my pen and paper, I take little notes. And if I have to repeat it to people, I will say to them that it was said by Mr. Williams on Carry FM, Keep It Real, on Tuesday night at so and so time.
Well, that's great. That's great.
That is how I give my information.
Right.
Dr. Secret, let me interrupt you 1 minute.
Who's this? Who's this secret guy? He only shops at Victoria's Secret.
Dr. Secret.
Yes.
Based on what you just said, listen to me. I was about to say to my brother Norbert here, what has me amazed about this gentleman, he comes informed. Every time he comes, he has a stack of paper, a whole stack of paper. So this gentleman, when he gives you some information on this program, this show, you could have your pen and paper and write down some information because everything he tells you, he comes in well equipped and well informed.
Yes, I already noticed that. Now, one of the things that I noticed as well, there are some people who are programmed to call this radio station just to divert St. Lucians from the truth and from keeping it real. They will go to all radio stations and give all false information that they have. Now, you know the rumors spreading faster than cancer. There's nothing that spreads faster than cancer than a rumor, false rumors. So, Brother William, whatever you are doing, keep doing it. You will find a lot of people attacking you left, right, and center.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's nothing new. Nothing new.
To discourage you.
Yeah.
Asking you from in which capacity that you're on the radio.
Yeah.
The important thing is that you are there to share the rightful information for St. Lucians. So sometimes when you don't hear people calling, people like me, when you hear I call often, it's because I am there receiving and for me to digest it properly. So because I see you are coming to that time, I say, let me call. So I can let you know that there are people that are listening out there. Because there are people that meet me and say, Dr. Secret, you all having a great show on Tuesday night. I'm listening to it and so on. Because I've been there with Champagne on a Thursday night on the country and western.
Okay. The one where you don't jump over the fence, right?
You certainly should like that show. Anyhow, you are doing a fine job, my brother, and keep doing it. Keep on giving us the right information that we need. And when people like such a lady calling you and jumping all over the place, not waiting for you to answer her, because sometimes she would ask you a question and while you're trying to answer the question, she moves on another side. When you're trying to get her there, she switch on another side. No, that is trying to distract people, to brainwash people that are listening to the program.
Okay.
But you are doing a fine job, and don't be distracted by anybody out there.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. I really appreciate
you've just extended the show by 15 minutes, okay?
Ready.
All right.
And Mr. Ellis, don't jump the fence, okay?
Don't jump the fence?
No.
Boy. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that call very much. We have an email here. It says, "Good evening, sir. Just want to add my piece to your show after you gave the information that's regarding the currency. It is so true. I did the research for myself with the thousands of Bolivar currency to US dollars. Keep up the good work. P.S. I've become one of Kyrie FM's ardent listeners since they came on the air. I'm locked on day after day. Mr. Ellis Champagne, keep it up. I'm from Vieux-Fort North, Pierrot.
Okay.
A good night to Pierrot. So your signal is loud and clear down in Pierrot.
Okay. What's that? Yes,
no, I was saying to Pierrot, don't forget the George Jones show on Thursday.
That's a commercial break. I have a message here coming on the WhatsApp. Says, lovely. Say hi to Nobby. Who's Nobby?
I don't know.
That's my daughter.
I guess that would
my
be
daughter
me.
Chantel.
Well, hi Chantel. How are you?
I have another message saying, tonight I look into the reasons behind. Oh no, that was your message. But there's another message here. Let me get it for you. It says, okay, currently in Hollywood, Florida, at the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Conference and Training. And you shout out your friend in Montserrat. That is him. He's not in Montserrat. He's actually in Florida listening to Kyrie.
Okay.
That's Commissioner Foster.
Well, good night to you, sir, and thank you very much for tuning in to Kyrie FM all the way over there in Hollywood, Florida. Yes, there's more than one Hollywood. And I guess at this time of year, the weather must be nice.
We had a Hollywood here, you know.
That Hollywood houses.
Well, Hollywood houses, Hollywood.
That's right. You see, a lot of people don't know that where you have the so-called new CDC now. Right. There was a housing area there.
Into the Hollywood.
That's right, Hollywood. That's right. Yeah. That's right. That was those gray.
That's right.
The gray houses there. So.
Yeah. Right. I'm getting a question, but I don't understand it.
What's the question?
Why was the first part of the program repeated? I don't understand.
But I'll a little typo there or something.
Maybe
the first part.
All right. So you have a few more minutes.
So let's go to the other part. If you'd like to call and give your comments or ask any questions.
4560931
right,
is the number.
And the email address, well, let's give the number again. 4560931, direct to the studio. And if you have an email comment or question, or you'd like to make a statement, email address is info@keepingitreal.lc. And I just got a message on WhatsApp a while ago, whilst we had the caller on, a listener in Canada. Good evening to you, and thank you. Just getting home and coming straight to Kyrie FM and keeping it real. We really appreciate that. I know we have another listener in Atlanta, Georgia, this afternoon, messaged me and said, I'll be listening tonight. So we have our listeners out there who are dedicated to keeping it real, because over here, we give you the
real stuff.
That's right. That's right. So we're going to move over to China just a little bit here, because included in that memo was the no visa requirement for China and the whole meaning of the word stay. But I don't think anybody is confused by that, because we know that it's not intended to indicate that Chinese can work in St. Lucia without a work permit. That's certainly not the intention of that memo. And if there was any policy to allow Chinese, I'm sure it would have been well articulated in the press. So, moving on, I just want to quote here a little statistic to you, because this will be the premise of my discussion on this whole China no visa.
Just also, Norbert, just one, since you're on the subject again, I researched this. The United States has 327.7 million people, right? Canada has 36.29 million people. The United Kingdom, 53.7 million people. These countries don't require a visa to come to St. Lucia. 46% of Americans, or somewhere around 111 million people, have passports. Okay, let's take the call.
Good evening. Thanks for calling Keeping It Real. You're on the air.
Hi, Norbert. Just
Yes,
on the Venezuela talk about the oil and whatever.
Yes.
Can you clarify for me, the duty-free price in St. Lucia is about $7 to $8 a gallon. Can you give us a disbursement where the rest of the money goes?
I really don't have that information for you. That's not the topic of discussion
Would
tonight.
it be
And I
a
don't
nice
know.
time to enlighten the people on the fuel? To let them know
Well,
that?
we're not discussing fuel right now. We're discussing visa regimes.
Oh, no, I understand that. But before you were talking to a gentleman about the Venezuela and the oil and that kind of stuff.
Yes,
I
but
think you should really enlighten the people on that, see where the disbursement goes.
But you explained to the caller that we're not discussing fuel, but we can research that and get back to you, caller, at another program.
Exactly. That's all I'm talking about.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be tonight, but...
oh, I thought you wanted that information
keep
right
it real.
now. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
calling. You know, it's these little comments and questions that are important in, getting
Yeah.
people in the know. I was just a little lost there for a second. If he wanted me to give him that information right now.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Okay, but that's fine. Thank you for calling, caller. I'd like to encourage you to call back again so we can discuss some other issues. So you were saying about...
Yeah, I was saying 6% of Chinese have passports, which equates to about 81.1 million people. So the question of the 2 billion people that now can come to St. Lucia, but not only that. Look at the Caribbean. There are 250 to 270,000 Barbadians that can come here without visa, and a couple of million, say, from Trinidad. You don't see the argument is so childish.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous to think that somebody who would stand in Parliament to make people believe that the Honorable Alan Chastney has now opened up the country, or the Labour Party has just opened up the country.
A fantasy world. But you see, it's good that you took that line, because I wanted to get into the CIP thing, and it's not directly related, but it is directly related.
You know what I wanted to find out, and this has opened up a can of worms. Because I remember when Dr. Kenny Anthony came on my television at home. I think he came on Champagne Zone too. I don't know if he came on yours.
Well, I don't know.
But he was saying that he decided to stay with Taiwan.
Okay. When was that? Some time ago.
I will try to get that recording and play it here for you. In that same message, I remember it very clearly. He was saying that he sent a team, a delegation to China, headed by the deputy Alva Baptiste. And the first thing that came to my mind, if for heaven's sake that the plane went down, we'd not only have lost a deputy in the Labour Party, we'd have lost our foreign minister, a foreign affairs minister, which is what the portfolio that Alva Baptiste held.
But why was that of concern? Because
no, it was concern because I couldn't understand why you've agreed to stay with Taiwan, and at the same time you go into China to do what? What are they going to tell him? What are they going to say that they can't say on the phone?
Well,
that's just my thinking. You might not agree with me, but I just find it very strange. Hey, you're saying you're staying with Taiwan, but the point is, I don't see 2 billion. It's just impossible for anybody to think that 2 billion is going to come.
But you see, this is all fear tactics. Fear tactics. And that fear tactic is also attached to CIP, that Chinese are going to be overrunning St. Lucia. But there is information to the contrary, because there are other countries in the region, for example, St. Kitts, Nevis, which has had or has the oldest CIP program, 30 years or so. And the population of St. Kitts has expanded or increased minimally over that period of time. Yet still, St. Kitts has sold, from the information that I've gotten, tens of thousands of passports in their CIP program. In fact, I don't have the exact figure at this point, but I was told it was somewhere near 100,000. Wow. Right? Let me pull it up right now for you and tell you at this moment the latest figures on the population of St. Kitts. And I see the latest is 2017 there. Let me see that. 2017, the population of St. Kitts is 55,000. But they've sold about 100,000 passports. Yeah. So why isn't the population 150,000? So are we supposed to believe that the population of St. Kitts there right now is primarily CIP persons? You see, Dominica as well has had tremendous sales at CIP. You see the population of Dominica exploding? In fact, let me pull it up here for you. Right?
It's about 90,000. Huh?
Now, St. Kitts, in 2016, the population was 54,821. In 2017, 55,000, a few hundred, which you can attribute to normal births.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? In 2015, 54,288, increase in population of only about 500 and something.
And some might have died.
Yeah. In 2010, 5 years before that, the population was 51,000, 445. So in 5 years, the population increased by 3,000 and something. 600 a year. It has remained steady. So let's go to Dominica. Population of Dominica, 73,925 in 2017. In 2016, the population of Dominica was 73,543, an increase of what? Just about 300 and almost 400, right? 2015, 73,162, an increase by 300 and something again. In 2010, 71,440. So between 2010 and 2015, the population increased by less than 2,000. So all the evidence we're seeing with countries which have significant CIP business, that the populations have not exploded at all.
And passports were sold.
And thousands were sold.
And the population of Venezuela, 31.57 million as of 2006.
That's right. So we're concerned about a little increase, if at all, in the population of St. Lucia for CIP. But we're not concerned about the influx or the potential for all of these. In fact, figures I was looking at is 1.5 million people have moved out of Venezuela into Colombia, into Guyana, into Trinidad. The estimate in Trinidad is that they have about 150,000 undocumented persons in Trinidad.
Wow.
150,000.
Okay.
Right? So let's go back to the China thing now.
And let's go back to the fact that we run out of time.
Yes.
We'll give better about another 5 minutes.
Yes, we'll go 5 more minutes, folks. Okay? That means next show, there's no more juice. Can't afford that. Right? St. Lucia is a significant tourist destination. About 80% of revenue in this country is tourist related, tourism related. I would expect that if you have a business, if you're a telecoms company, if you're a supermarket, if you're an internet service provider, that you would want to target the market that would be most able to afford whatever service you're selling. So I looked up, there's been a lot of talk about China again, the fear tactic, we're going to be overrun by Chinese, all of these Chinese going to come over here. No visa requirements for Chinese. U.S. citizens don't stay here. They don't need a visa to stay in St. Lucia. Canadians don't need visas. They're not staying. And they're closer to home. It's easier, it's cheaper to fly here. British citizens don't, by and large, come to St. Lucia and stay. Right? We have a call. Good evening. Thank you for calling.
Good evening.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, very well to give the differentiation to the population. But let me just quickly say something tonight. That it is better for us to build ourselves and develop ourselves like the other countries, and I'm talking about our people. But I have one fear with the Chinese entering here without a visa, is that the DSH bill, there is one clause in that bill where the developer can employ whosoever you want.
Which clause says that?
I am not going to go into the clause. So you have the document. The document is supposed to be a leaked document, and I'm not. Before I spoke about leaked document. I'm just talking about the document I read, and it says that. And I'm not going to go into the clause with you, but you check it for yourself. And that is my biggest fear. That when it comes to employment in St. Lucia, especially with the GSH project, with the Chinese coming in here without a visa and can be employed over our people, this is my biggest fear.
That's not true, sir. Night. Thank you very much. Thanks for calling, but that is not true. That's not true at all. Chinese or anyone cannot come to St. Lucia and be employed without going through the process. That is absolutely not true, and I challenge anyone to prove otherwise. So I was looking at a list of the 10 largest economies in the world. And for those of you who like to Google stuff or Yahoo it or Alta Vista it or whatever search engine you'd like to use, even YouTube it, you'll be surprised what you find on the YouTube University. China has one of the largest economies of the world, and recently, particularly since the last 10, 15, 20 years, China has been growing by leaps and bounds never seen anywhere else. They have the largest number of billionaires, new millionaires, new cities are being built all over China in the past 5 years. New airports are being built like crazy in China. And the Chinese economy, for all intents and purposes, is booming. It's a behemoth. The largest economy in the world is the United States of America. And the value of that economy on a yearly basis is $20.4 trillion. $20.4 trillion. Don't even try to understand it. Just imagine that it has a lot of zeros. Right?
That's
20 trillion US dollars. All of this is based in US dollars.
Right.
The 10th largest economy is Canada at $1.8 trillion. But we want tourists to come from Canada.
Yeah.
They have spending power. They have money.
Yeah.
Right? Brazil is the next largest at 9 with 2.14 trillion. Italy 8, 2.18. We get tourists from Brazil. Not so big.
Too bad. No, yeah.
We get tourists from Italy. We know that. We get quite a bit of tourists from Italy. We have India at number 7, 2.85 trillion. We don't get that much,
Not too much, but
over
we get
here.
some.
France, number 6, 2.93 trillion. We get visitors from France. We get tourists from France. The United Kingdom, $2.94 trillion economy every year. United Kingdom, we get lots of visitors from the UK.
That's a big market.
Right? Germany, another big market for St. Lucia tourism. 4.2 trillion, and they're at number 4, the 4th largest economy in the world at $4.2 trillion. Japan is at number 3 at $5.1 trillion. We don't have a footprint there. We get there off and on, but it's not a big deal.
No, it's not a big
right?
market.
The United States, as I said before, at number 1, $20.4 trillion. But guess who's at number 2?
Yep.
China at number 2 at $14 trillion. Wow. You tell me they don't have money we want to spend here?
Exactly. Just $6 trillion difference from the United States.
The second largest economy in the world. See, if they have the second largest economy in the world, what does that mean? Does that mean they're a scrunting country?
And let me say something, because I like the way you itemize this. Where is England? What number is England?
England is number 5, United
Right.
Kingdom.
The United Kingdom, number 5. And we have a huge market of tourists. I just want to make a point. We have a huge market of British people coming to St. Lucia regarding tourism. So here we are with China, number 2. So if we have number 5 with a huge amount of people coming to St. Lucia on vacation, spending money, why not have the number 2 people coming to St. Lucia as well?
I would like you to direct that question to the people who talking
You know what I'm
all
saying?
of this balderdash,
Yeah.
baloney, and it's not on a sandwich.
But it's easy. It's very simple to understand. You have number 5 coming here. We have a huge market with number 5, but you do not want number 2 to come because your mindset is number 2 will come and take the jobs
Man,
that the
listen to
solution
me.
people have.
Man, listen to me. Let me tell you something. Some people are absolutely and totally out of their minds, and all they are bent on is to destabilize
like one
the
of the
proper
callers
thinking solutions. Their sole intention, by any means necessary, to undermine confidence in St. Lucia, and by their actions, you have seen, and the actions and words have borne evidence to that.
But you know what? This is the reason why you're here, to give the people the proper information.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, my argument is very simple. It's number 5, number 6, number 7 could come to St. Lucia. You accept number 5, but number 2, you have a serious problem with number 2. Yeah. That's a serious question. Yeah. Why is that?
But these same people had problems when St. Lucia at some point went to Taiwan, eh?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Remember when there was all the talk about it's important to learn Chinese? Remember that some years ago?
I remember.
Hey.
I remember.
Yes, yeah,
don't forget these things.
I'll say it. Yeah, that's what you say.
But seriously, why do you think that? Why do you think that some people may have a problem or some difficulty with the Chinese people coming here?
And as far as I'm concerned, it's all expedience right now. Because if things change, they would have no problem in accepting and going along with the Chinese. I have absolutely no doubt about that at all. And that's where that's where those nonsense talks need to go with this foolishness there. That's exactly where it needs to go. Down the tubes.
2 billion people come to St. Lucia.
No, 2
all
billion
of China.
People. All of China. Can you believe that?
All of China.
Hold on a second there. Hold on a second there.
All of China.
Hold on a second there. Let me just get something here for you.
That's the longest 5 minutes in the world.
Well, you know, the area of China is 3.7 million square miles.
Wow.
St. Lucia is 238 square miles.
Wow. You know, that's millions and millions of times St. Lucia could fit in
there are lakes in China that you could just drop St. Lucia into and it would disappear. Lakes, not even the sea. Lakes in China that are larger than St. Lucia.
So we just invited all 2 billion of
2 billion of the Chinese are all of a sudden going to just get on planes and come down here.
Going to leave their cities, leave their everything behind and come to St. Lucia.
We're going to be overrun, man.
You know, if I had said that anywhere on the street and somebody had picked it up, you know, I could have understand somebody making a deal with it. But I would not even make that statement. And for you to have a parliamentarian making that kind of a statement.
Wasn't it the same one who said we can fix St. Jude's by getting some chemical bleach?
Yeah. No, I don't think that was
there's another one.
Anyway.
Well, folks, we've come to the end of our rope here tonight. A little bit over time, but we'd like to thank you for your calls and your comments, your email, your WhatsApp messages over there in Canada. Good night. Thank you for tuning in Atlanta, Georgia, in the UK, in Hollywood, Florida, in New York City. New York City. Good night to you. St. Lucia, in Pierrot, in Castries, Choiseul, Canaries, Labrie, Henry.
Bacatel.
That's right.
I
Grosley.
want one of these nights when you come when we have a discussion about housing.
Okay, we can do that again. You want one of those houses at Shock, right? All right.
Listen, the night has been good so far.
Good night, St. Lucia.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you. This has been Keeping It Real, episode number 6 for Tuesday, the 31st day of July, 2018.
Happy holiday tomorrow, St. Lucia.
Be safe, St. Lucia. I'm Norbert Williams. Good night.